The Nintendo Entertainment System, the premier video game console of the mid to late 1980s. Responsible for saving the video game industry and being the benchmark for some of the most iconic games of all time. However, a large amount of these games are bogged down by a lot of dated design choices that absolutely wouldn't be accepted if put into a video game today. Very long and tedious passwords to continue at a certain point, and NPCs who refuse to give clear directions. However, the worst of these examples is having to start the game from level 1 again after making a lot of progress because you lost all your lives. Some see them as a product of their time, others see it as a scare tactic and then proceed to not play them. However, there's one game, actually, no, an entire series of games that goes above and beyond to mitigate those problems while also creating a fun and addictive formula, while also creating some of its own problems, admittedly. However, that wouldn't stop this franchise from becoming very iconic and beloved in the hearts of many gamers for generations. And that franchise and the game in question goes by the name of Mega Man. Releasing in 1987, Capcom, a video game company famous for making arcade ports, wanted to create their own game, especially since the video game home market was seeing a resurgence mostly thanks to Nintendo. And so they hired Keiji Inafune fresh out of college and a team of 6 people to create the game. The plan was to make a simple run-and-gun platformer where the main character would be designed after the NES's limited color palette. And with a tiny pinch of Astro Boy, the character was made into a robot, and the idea of Rockman was born. No, that wasn't a typo, his name was originally Rockman in Japan. Capcom's American president at the time thought the name was stupid, so elected to have his name changed to Mega Man in every other part of the world. Which, to be honest, was a good call, because now when I think of Rockman, I just think of this guy, but hey, now I'm just spoiling at this point. Due to this game being released in the 80s, the story is not laid out for you at all when you first boot it up. Instead, you would have to break out the game's manual in order to get proper context, and the fact that it takes place in the year 2000X, where robots and humans live together in perfect harmony. Dr. Light, a prominent figure in robotics, creates 6 special robots for industrial-specific work. However, Dr. Wily, Light's former comrade who's always been jealous of his fame and notoriety, decides to steal and reprogram the 6 robots into doing very bad things, like property damage, tax evasion, and not subscribing. All hope seems lost until Rock, Dr. Light's robotic assistant slash son, decides to volunteer himself into being upgraded so he can at least capacitate the 6 robots before they cause more damage. And his robotic sister Roll is perfectly fine with existing. Dr. Light, with no other option, makes the necessary preparations by upgrading Rock with a plasma blaster and titanium battle armor. And from that day onward, the blue bomber known as Mega Man was born. And as you can tell, the story was very straight to the point. But hey, that was also a tradition back then because the main emphasis of a game is its gameplay. And so, with all that being said, let us officially dive into the game proper and see what psychological trauma we can develop from it. Now, when playing a normal video game, you would expect to start from level 1, complete it, and then repeat the process a set amount of times until the game ends. However, Mega Man, the franchise, not the character, allows itself to innovate and starts you off with a stage selection screen, essentially giving you, the player, options of where you want to start first. This encourages replay value as your next playthrough will be different from others. Now granted, this point will be overshadowed by a topic I'll discuss later, but hey, diversity is the way of the world, right? So essentially you have to select the stage, blast your way through 12 screens of obstacles, and then trash the Robot Master. Repeat the process 5 more times until Dr. Wily Square appears on screen. Marathon a gauntlet of 4 stages while using the skills you learn throughout the 6 levels, and then celebrate after trashing Dr. Wily's final mech within an hour if you know what you're doing. Sounds simple enough, but I have a very important question for all of you. Did you get the Magna Beam yet? The Robot Masters in question are Bomb Man, Guts Man, Cut Man, Elect Man, Ice Man, and Fireman. Notice how I introduced them in a specific order? Don't worry, this will be on the quiz later. Controlling Mega Man is quite simple. You can run, jump, shoot, and jump while shooting.
And nothing.
You can't aim your plasma cannon in any directions. You can only shoot what's straight ahead of you. Now, on one hand, there should be no excuse because Contra was released 10 months before the fact. However, taken in consideration, all games have their own rules when dealing with their enemies. All of them contribute the same rule, reading out their patterns. In the case of Mega Man, I find this to be more of a patience game than anything. For you see, Mega Man being able to only shoot in front of him isn't a design flaw, it's more of a fun gameplay loop. Because it's not all about how you should shoot your enemies, you also have to consider when you should shoot them. Same rules apply for platforming, should you do a soft or hard jump. Would letting go of this ladder here be wise? Should I fall for this obvious death trap? Now, I know for the alpha gamers, this is going to feel like in one ear out the other because this is like the 900th Mega Man video. However, this is just stuff I'm pointing out for the people whose first exposure to Mega Man was, oh, I don't know, the Mega Man and Sonic crossover or this crap. So, to all the newbies, I'm going to tell you a secret. You're going to get your ass kicked hard. Yeah, sure, if you know what you're doing, play your cards right, you can make it through. However, for absolute newcomers, I ain't sugarcoating. You're going to die a lot, and it's all thanks to the level design. Okay, admittedly it has less to do with the level design itself, mostly because it's very simplistic in nature. It's mostly straight hallways, these ladder that takes you to higher sections, a drop zone here, a drop zone there. So no, what's actually going to eat you alive is the enemy placement. But again, if you just read out their patterns, you should be on your merry way. And also, don't try to your way through everything, for you see, you have a health bar, and if that little rectangle depletes to 0, Knuckle Kid will explode into giant blue balls, causing you to lose a life. You can regain some of your lost health through these energy capsules that are just thrown on the floor for no reason, or one will spawn out of defeated enemies. And if you're lucky enough to be in a room where you can make the enemies respawn, you can actually farm for these. But trust me, the other games are a better example for this. You can also try this with extra lives, which take the form of decapitated Mega Man heads, which I'm just going to assume were from Mega Man prototypes. I wonder if there was a red one. You start off with 3 of them, but you can get more. However, be warned, most of the enemies will drop these balls, which will add to your score. And if you just so happen to be unlucky enough to lose all your lives, the score will reset to 0, and you would have to start the stage over, or just go back to the selection screen. And no questions about it, this is an absolute better alternative than redoing the whole game again. Because as stated an intro ago, a lot of NES games did this garbage and would easily turn a lot of people off from them. Specifically a lot of modern gamers. Although, on that note, you would have to beat the game in one sitting because if you turn off the console, it won't save your progress. So needless to say, I hope you have money for that electric bill. Well, what am I complaining about? I live in the digital age where save states are a gift from God and cheating reduces stress by 1,000. But back to the original talking point. No doubt the most common enemies you'll face are these helicopter guys that comes in either sets of 3 or 4, and they'll absolutely dogpile your ass if you're not prepared. And God forbid you fall down a bottomless pit. No. It wasn't enough to hear the explosion. They need to go down there physically and make sure you're double dead. There are also stage-specific enemies, but even those can't compare to the dreaded Big Eye. Now this absolute freight truck will show up at the end of every level -2, and will do everything in its power to slam down on you while taking 1/3 of your health bar with you. So needless to say, don't get hit by them 3 times in a row. And if that doesn't kill you, well, your feet will, because sometimes Mega Man will have the tendency to slip after stopping. Though if you jump before you come to a complete halt, it's not really noticeable. Just don't jump into spike pits because those will kill you in one hit, and no invincibility frames will not save you. As stated earlier, most of the level design is simplistic, and the individual stages is no exception to this. However, each of them have their own unique aesthetic to make them all feel distinct from each other. For example, Fireman has a whole lot of water laced with red food dye, and Bomb Man stage being an absolute boom fest. However, the stages that personally stood out to me were the latter 3 I didn't mention yet. Because in the case of a Leg Man, instead of traveling horizontally like most levels, you're traveling vertically, with a whole bunch of electricity that's begging you to go back down to the previous floors. The only truly annoying part of Gutsman stage is the first minute of it, considering you have to jump on these platforms that'll make you skyrocket into the bottomless pit below, right as they drive over these very specific cuts in the circuit line. I recommend to jump 2 seconds before they get to those cuts, and the rest of the level should be straightforward. Unlike these flying penguins. Not trashing them because their favorite holiday is June, I'm merely trashing them because they appear in the worst section in the second worst stage in the game. Yes, Iceman, I am talking about you.
Because you are a disgusting fat body!
Yes, I know ice is slippery, but that's not the point. Nor are the disappearing blocks because they're not as annoying as later games will have them be. No, the real point of Contingency is this godforsaken pit with these godforsaken helicopter enemies that are the pure book definition of the word random. It's as bad as it sounds. They fly in directions that make it impossible for you to land on them properly, and even if you do land on them properly, there'll be another to try to push you off. And if that wasn't bad enough, they call up their boys, the goddamn Flying Penguin Platoon, who solely exist to make your jumping day even worse. Did I mention these guys can shoot you when you try to land on another? Oh, it's that? I didn't? Well then, these guys can shoot you when you try to land on another. Sometimes it's manageable, but that absolutely doesn't excuse the bull displayed here. Also, the magnet beam, did you get it yet? And so, after that witch trial, we come to the reason why we were exploring these stages, to execute the Robot Master. Does it bear repeating at this point, especially since these guys apply the method of jumping around in a million directions, hoping to robo-god whatever projectile they're shooting hits you as a part of their strategy? Yeah, I didn't think so. However, word of warning, 2 of these guys have weapons that'll trash you in 3 hits, and 1 of them is just straight up unfair. So when the going gets too rough, you bust out another innovation. Because when you defeat a Robot Master, you actually gain their special ability, meaning you can use their weapons to your amusement. The game doesn't tell you this. Well, at least when you're playing, that is. Activating them is as simple as pushing the pause button because your parents called you for unimportant stuff like washing dishes. Then you select them and just have yourself a grand old merry time, one-shotting, one-shotting literally everything in your path. Though I wouldn't recommend doing this because what if I told you these things worked on bosses as well? And what if I also told you some weapons work better than others? That's right, these guys take more damage depending on what weapon you use on them. This in turn creates the concept of a weakness chain, meaning it's up to you to decide which boss you want to take out first and then plan your boss route from there. And if you do abuse all your weapons before getting there, you can replenish the energy with these weapon capsules. They're found the same way as the health capsule, only in weapon juice form. All this talk about looking for enemy patterns have really got me thinking about how the graphics are very simple but pleasing on the eyes nonetheless. Everything has a black border around it, making it very simple to separate yourself from everything around you. With the exception of the sky, which is mostly a flat color, everything looks like the way they should be. And a catchy soundtrack that absolutely fits with the environment you're playing in. Sure, there are not that many earworms as Mega Man 2. Sure, it doesn't have that many earworms, however, some of the highlights include a Lightman stage, Cutman stage, and the second theme for the latter half of Wily's Castle. Although, speaking of which, before we summarize the final levels, let's talk about the many different versions of this game you can play. There's the phone version, which was absolutely terrible, thank God that was delisted. The Anniversary Collection, which is on a discontinued console. An enhanced 16-bit port for the Sega Genesis on Mega Man The Wily Wars, and you get Mega Man 2 and 3 with it, which, legend of the day, kid, more is always good, so go for more. But if that's the case, you might as well get Mega Man Legacy Collection, which is on current hardware, and you get the other 5 Mega Man NES games. However, the most standout version of this game would absolutely have to be Mega Man Powered Up. A PSP remake that takes everything you know and love about the original game and enhance it with a 2.5D cheapified style, as well as having voice acting, a stage builder, a few extra missions, and the ability to play as the Robot Masters after defeating them with the Mega Buster only, so basically play it on easy. It also adds 2 more Robot Masters, Time and Oil Man. I think Bond Man would have been a better choice, but hey, I'm not at $1 million company. It also has downloadable content, sort of, and with it, you can play as Roll, Mega Man's sister, who can trash everything in her path with a broom, including the Robot Masters.
Hey, men only!
You're making me mad!
Oh, all right, Missy. I'll forgive you.
Psych!
Unfortunately, it's forever trapped on the PSP. Hopefully sooner or later we get a modern day port, though to be honest, if we are going to play these games on modern hardware, we might as well just do it on Legacy Collection, because it's the most readily available version. However, I still think Mega Man Powered Up is a pretty neat experience that's absolutely worth checking out. So if you have a PSP lying around or the PS Store on Vita didn't shut down yet, please do yourself a favor and pick it up immediately. You won't regret it at all. Now, as for Wily's Castles, no doubt about it, these are the most challenging levels in the game, especially since the first stage starts off with 3 big eyes. So what do you do in this scenario? Well, you bust out whatever weapon you think would kill him fast enough, or stop him in his tracks. In fact, this is these levels in a nutshell, giving your weapons the final test run, while also applying everything you learned about the game to finish it. Sounds simple enough, however, there is a question you should ask yourself. And it's a very simple one, won't take that long. Did you get the Magna Beam yet? What on God's blue earth is a Magna Beam? Well, it's this weapon you find on the Electman stage, which will make a platform. How long it is determined on how long you hold the shoot button. And yes, it breaks the game's platforming in two. However, if you don't have the Magna Beam for certain sections, like this bull right here, you're basically screwed. And yeah, sure, I know where to get it and I know how to get it, but hypothetically, let's pretend I'm a kid from the 80s who bought this game from Blockbuster who also didn't have the manual in the case. After having so much trouble with these bastards, seriously, them with a coat hanger, I finally get up this ladder, only to realize I can't get through this section because I don't have a very specific weapon for this very specific room. What kind of bullcrap is that, guys? And okay, I know you guys are gonna tell me that I shouldn't be passionate about this. However, I just can't help but feel frustrated for the people who first played this game and got to this section. Going through all the heartbreak just to find out their game is unbeatable. Because the developers tried to be fancy and make a section you'll never find out how to beat unless you buy Nintendo Power. And that, my friends, is another sin of retro gaming I'm glad they stopped doing. However, when you do eventually backtrack to Electman stage to get this thing, we finally made it. The entrance to hell. Don't you mean the exit to hell? I know what I said. So this yellow pudding bastard is named Yellow Devil. He separates into a billion pieces and you have to jump over those pieces. He'll also open his eye to shoot you. And just like everything else in the game, he does have a pattern for you to follow. However, the sad truth is, being a great observer isn't gonna help you this time because he's too goddamn fast. His eye also likes to appear in random places on his body, so use the Elect Beam to help you. But even that won't save you for long, so what do? Use save states! In a modern context, yes, however, I'm still thinking from an 80s kid perspective, so no, the correct answer is we cheat. Now, when pushing the start button, you open up the weapons menu. This in turn stops everything in the game. However, you're not really pausing the game because if you push the select button, everything on screen will freeze in act, making it pause. Dirt trivia, but how is that going to help us against Rock Monster? Oh, hey, look what I found for $5. Quit cutting me off! Because this has added benefits when you shoot off one of your weapons. For you see, if you push select after shooting off a projectile, it'll remain on screen until you unfreeze the game, and once you do unfreeze it, the projectile hitbox will still be active. Now, there's probably someone on the internet who can explain the glitchy nature of this better than me. However, I see it more as a main feature, and Capcom agrees with me as exposed by Legacy Collection's options menu. Meaning yes, every time Mega Man 1 gets re-released, they don't patch it out on purpose. And you wanna know why? Because they knew fighting this thing fairly is mentally taxing. If the Magna Beam situation didn't expose the fact that this is the worst level in the game, this motherfucker absolutely does. But even after all of that, it's a smooth ride from here on out. Sort of. Because when Stage 2 start, your weapons don't refill, so make sure to collect any and all weapons capsules if you see them. Other than that, Stage 2 consists of 2 rematches with 2 of the Robot Masters, and while Copybot may use the same ability you're using currently, he's a pushover when you realize his weakness is the B button. Stage 3 is mostly a hallway with enemies in it. A level design philosophy I'm sure will never be used in the future. And the bubble computer is also pretty simple, just as long as he doesn't come out through the top pipe, you suck! Finally, stage 4. Just climb a ladder, avoid some turrets while also admiring Wily's collection of Gutsman portraits. Grab this thing that, well, you're looking at the screen, and then refight the last 4 robot masters fair and square. And by fair and square, I mean only Bomb Man, because Fireman and his tracking fire of destruction. Trash the other 2 masters with the same trick, and then you'll find yourself in the lair of the ultimate combat robot, Wily Machine number 1. Avoid his arching bullets and circly bullets, while also toasting and cutting the wires of the machine. Your worst enemy will absolutely be the sprite flickering. There are times in the game where it's bad, but it's here where it's absolutely devastating near point of view. However, if you're able to push through, Dr. Wily will go down begging for forgiveness and Mega Man 1 is complete. Mega Man has ended the evil domination of Dr. Wily and has restored the world to peace. However, the never-ending battle continues until all destructive forces are defeated. Fight, Mega Man, for everlasting peace. So overall, Mega Man 1 is a great start to a fantastic series. It established a unique gameplay formula while also fixing some of the problems presented in video games at the time. However, it's not without its faults though. The slippery running can be a detriment to any platform challenge, and a few of the enemies can give you a run for your money. And do I need to remind you of the Magna Beam and Yellow Devil again? Yeah, I didn't think so. And while sales projections weren't as good as Capcom wanted them to be, that didn't stop the praise and admiration this game got. From its simple but eye-pleasing graphics, its fantastic music, and gameplay that will absolutely keep you on your toes, the staff at Capcom have created a never-tiring experience with cool weapons to boot. It's definitely my 3rd favorite Mega Man game and I highly recommend it, just don't go into it thinking you're going to beat it for the first time. It takes a lot of effort and some amount of cheating. But at the end of the day, it's still a fun experience, and the formula's potential will only get better for future games to come.